Former Attorney General Pam Bondi admits the Epstein files rollout wasn't perfect, but she wants you to know it wasn't her fault. She said so during a voluntary closed-door interview before the House Oversight Committee yesterday, and she appeared to place blame squarely on the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche for the mishandling of the Epstein files. Although she later disputed this characterization and said Blanche's ethics are, quote, beyond reproach. During her prepared remarks, Bondi said that she, quote, did not lead every aspect of this effort or conduct that document review herself, adding that she delegated that process to Blanche. But current and former DOJ officials tell the New York Times that, quote, not only was Bondi informed of every key development in the Epstein case, but she also signed off on every major decision, including by issuing a memo in July 2025 that formally ended the government's review of the files. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari of Arizona. She sits on the Oversight Committee and is one of the lawmakers who grilled Bondi yesterday. So, Congresswoman, can you talk us through how this entire hearing unfolded, starting from the agreement that Bondi apparently struck that this was not under subpoena?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. The crimes and corruption within the Trump administration and this Department of Justice that has clearly been weaponized is so extreme. Yesterday, Pam Bondi came before us for something called a transcribed interview, which means that it was behind closed doors. She was not under oath, and there was no video recording. We have issued a legal, lawful subpoena that Chairman Comer, the Republican chairman of the committee, actually signed himself, that Pam Bondi was supposed to come before us under oath and answer questions in front of the American people. What happened yesterday was a disgrace. She actually had senior officials from the Department of Justice basically there as her personal counsel, whispering back and forth in her ear, telling her, you know, what to say, what not to say. She refused to answer any questions pertaining to President Trump. And of course, she blamed the vast majority and put responsibility of the mishandling of the Epstein files squarely into the hands of Todd Blanche, but also Kash Patel. She mentioned his name a couple of times and some of the things that she had asked from him when, as director of the FBI, that he failed to do. To me, the entire thing was ridiculous. It is so disgusting how the Trump administration has weaponized the Department of Justice and the way that Republicans in Congress, led by James Comer and Mike Johnson, are enabling the most egregious cover-up in American history.
Congresswoman, one of the things that was reported out of that hearing that you attended was that apparently the former AG, Pam Bondi, said that she did not think that Donald Trump should pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. According to the New York Post, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon told the Post following Bondi's 4-hour transcribed interview before the House Oversight Committee that the 60-year-old also declared twice, in fact, that Maxwell, the accomplice and occasional girlfriend of convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, should not receive a presidential pardon. What more can you tell us about the context in which those statements were apparently made, that twice Pam Bondi said that Maxwell should not receive a pardon? And are you encouraged by those comments from Bondi?
Well, there were several lines of questioning about Ghislaine Maxwell in particular, because, of course, the entire circumstances around her transfer from a higher security prison to now a very low and minimum security prison is very suspicious. And so we asked her about that and who made those decisions. That is one of the areas in which she really talked about Todd Blanche and mentioned that she didn't know, how it came to be that Todd Blanche went to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, whether Maxwell's team had reached out or the Department of Justice had reached out. So, she said it was he who decided to do so. He went and interviewed her. And then she said she did not know how the decision came that she was moved and that we would have to ask the Bureau of Prisons about that. So we, of course, probed on, Ghislaine Maxwell and Bondi's opinion of her. She did call Maxwell a monster and I don't want to give her kudos. That is an obvious statement. This is a person who was, is convicted of child sex trafficking, and we know that she was a monster. But I think what the tension that this brings to light is that there are many Republicans in Congress who haven't ruled out the idea of giving Ghislaine Maxwell a pardon. Donald Trump himself has not ruled out giving Ghislaine Maxwell a pardon. And to me, the fact that the president's former personal attorney, Todd Blanche, is responsible for, the entirety of this Epstein files cover-up and saga and, was involved in this interview, that's very, very questionable to me. And I think all of this needs to be investigated. I think there are, avenues that we need to explore around prosecution of these individuals in the Department of Justice. The fact that so many Jane Doe's identities were revealed in the rollout of the Epstein files. To me, that is witness tampering. To me, that means that the Department of Justice was trying to scare these survivors from speaking out. And now that I know that Todd Blanche was running all of this, it makes all the more sense.
Congresswoman, one of the things, just to set the scene here, I want to acknowledge is that, yes, this was a Friday before a holiday weekend. And so one of the fun stats is that there was exactly one Republican present, and it was James Comer, who had to be there because he was the chairperson. So you're talking about political damage and the political costs potentially. What does it say to you that no other Republicans showed up?
It says everything that we need to know. Republicans do not give a damn about this investigation. They never have. It's always been a spectacle to them. And now that they know, and it's so obvious that a cover-up is underway, they don't want to take part. They've only taken part in the elements of this investigation that have to do with trying to go after Democrats. There were over a dozen of them in New York. I was in New York for, the depositions of Secretary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton. All of that was videotaped and released to the public, and all of these Republicans felt the need to fly out and show up there. But none of them, other than the chairman, showed up for the most important interview, arguably, that we've had with the former Attorney General who handled all of this. I think that just demonstrates it's a slap in the face to the survivors. It's a slap in the face to this investigation. But my message to them is we're not letting this go. This is just the beginning of this investigation, and accountability will come for not only the people who perpetrated and enabled Epstein's crimes, but for the people in the Trump administration and any other administration who were part of the cover-up.
Yeah, not wanting to even ask questions feels like a relevant fact in this whole scenario. But
it's
Congressman
ridiculous.
Yasamin Ansari, thank you for answering our questions at the very least.